What's going on YouTube? Bryce Builds It All, your favorite A&P, IA, and Part 147 instructor. And in today's video, I have hit 10,000 subscribers. This has already been announced, but I am doing my 10,000 subscriber AMA. So I put out a couple videos, asked people to ask questions. If you have any questions that I'm not going to answer in this video, drop them down below. I'm going to try to answer as many of them as I can. A couple of them were repeats. So anyways, I'll do the best I can, but I won't waste any more time, and I'll get into it. Fair warning, I'm going to be doing a lot of yapping for this video, so put it on in the background while you're driving or when you're working and just listen to it because it's a long one. All right, one of the first questions I got was, how did you get into aviation? And actually it's kind of my dad's fault, and actually it's my grandfather's fault because my grandfather owned an airplane and then he got my dad into flying. So then my dad was a pilot. My dad also works general construction, it doesn't matter. But anyways, my dad was flying, and then my older brothers were born. I think he sold his airplane. Quite a few years went by, and then when I was growing up, my dad was always, passionate about airplanes. He liked airplanes, he likes flying. Every time an airplane would fly over the house, he'd do one of these, and that kind of whole thing. So he got me interested in it. I won a scholarship from the Aviation Explorers, and I started taking flight lessons, and it was pretty much game over after that. I decided that I liked it. I really wanted to build hot rods with my life. I wanted to be like the next Jesse James or like hot rod builder or whatever it was, but I decided that was going to be really expensive and really hard, and that I didn't necessarily want to build cars for someone else. So I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, my older brother is an aircraft mechanic, and it's been worked out pretty well for him. I think I'm also going to be an aircraft mechanic. I'm going to abandon this flying thing because I don't really want to be a pilot. And my dad said, well, that sounds like a good plan. It's worked out well for your brother. It'll probably work out well for you. So I quit. Well, I didn't quit flying. I stopped flying, stopped taking flight lessons, and I came to school to get my A&P certificate, and the rest is history. The next question I got, which actually goes kind of along with that, is how long have I been an aircraft mechanic? How long have I been an A&P? And I've actually been a certificated A&P for about 10 years. I've been messing around with airplanes for about 12 and a half years. And I started flying about 14 years ago, and that might age me a little bit, but that should give you the answer. So between flying and all that, like I said, about 12 and a half years. I got my IA when I was 24? So I've been an IA for coming up on actually a little over 6 years now. I've been an IA, like I said, I got my IA at almost the 4-year mark. I was like 3.5 years in, and I went and got my IA, and for a long time I was the youngest IA at all the IA seminars. And the kind of scary thing about that is I'm still the youngest IA at all the IA seminars, even though I've now broke into my 30s. So anyways, like I said, about 10 years. Another question I got was, have I ever worked on helicopters? And the short answer to that question is no, I've never worked on helicopters. We have one at the school. I've messed with it. I've learned its systems to teach it and to train it and to show it to my students. But outside of what I need to know in the classroom for it, which isn't really a whole lot in a 147 environment, except for what is in assembly and rigging, then I really haven't needed to know that much information about helicopters. Plus, I'm really fortunate to work with not one, not two, not three, but 4 helicopter mechanics in the 147 program that I teach at. 2 of them were full-time helicopter mechanics, and that's all they ever did with their entire career. So no, I've never worked on helicopters other than the one we have here. The next question I got was about, is there an age limit? When is it too old to go to work for an airline? Do they have an age cutoff? And to my knowledge, I don't think that they have an age cutoff. I don't think there's like any hard line. I mean, if you walk in there 85 years old trying to get a job as a line maintenance mechanic, then there might be an issue. I know they have physical requirements, like you have to be able to lift and carry so much and do all those kinds of things like most jobs do. But there's no like official age cutoff that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. If I am, drop that in the comments. I'm not going to be offended. But when is too old to get in the airlines? I don't think you're ever really too old for any job. I think that comes down to, do you want to start at the bottom of the ladder in your 60s or in your 70s? Or would you rather work somewhere like an MRO or a maintenance repair organization where, maybe you're starting at the bottom, but you're at least in a hangar and not necessarily on a flight line? It's a personal thing. I know a lot of guys who retire out of the military. Well, I don't know a lot of guys, but I'm saying there are a lot of guys who retire out of the military and they did 20, 25 years on military aircraft. They get their A&P and then they go roll into a job at an airline somewhere working on airline aircraft. And they would probably argue that they're not too old, but they've been doing aviation maintenance their entire career. So worth a note. The next couple questions I got, and I'm going to kind of rope all these together. I got some questions, like 3 or 4 different questions on A&P test study material. What should I recommend? What would I study? What would you recommend for studying? I've got my test coming up. Any pointers? And I'm going to reiterate what I've said so many times in the past. If your test is coming up, if your test is right around the corner, study, 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 obviously right up until the day you go. The day you go, don't look at any of your test material. You're not going to push anything else in your brain. You're not going to remind yourself of anything that you haven't already forgotten. Just give your brain a rest the night before. Put the books away. Don't stay up cramming. Go to bed 9 o'clock at night, whatever. Wake up in the morning, eat a breakfast, something healthy and nutritious. Don't pound a Red Bull and then go into the DME. Eat a good breakfast, get a good night's sleep, go in, drink water, be ready for the test. Keep yourself mentally sharp for the test. As far as studying for it, all of the study guides, in my opinion, have pretty much all caught up at this point. It doesn't really matter if you're studying Jeppesen, Dauntless, ASA, Prepware. They're all pretty close. There's just some difference in wording. Some of them have different material. Some of them have different things here and there. But if you're studying those, as long as you feel like you understand, I'd say 99% of the information, or maybe 90% of the information. If you feel like, not just that I know the answer, like this is paper, but I know what makes it paper, right? Or I know where the ink in the pen comes from. I don't know. You get what I'm getting at. As long as you understand the information and you're not just memorizing the information, you should do okay on the oral portion. The practical project, the biggest thing there is always making sure that first things first, you have your manual, you have your safety equipment, and you're following a procedure. As long as you're following a procedure, and I should say following the correct procedure, none of the DMEs that I know do this, but I have heard of DMEs who have like distractor procedures for different things, or if you're using the 4313, but they really want to see you using the aircraft maintenance manual and not that, they might dig you for those kind of things. So making sure you're following your procedure for your practical test, and you should do fine. The better you do on your writtens, the better you're going to do on your oral and practical. And as always, like I say this, don't sweat it if you fail. Retesting is really easy. It's going to be cheap as compared to paying for the original test. You go, you get signed off you retrain, you come in, you retest, wham bam, you're done. It's all over. So the next question I got was dropping things. Like what methods and techniques do I employ to help keep myself from dropping things? And the truthful answer to that question is I have done everything. I have put masking tape over the end of a box end wrench and then put a nut inside the wrench and done that. I've put Easy Turn, which is actually a fuel lubricant, but it's aviation approved. Put Easy Turn on my finger. If you don't know what Easy Turn is, like I said, it's a fuel lube, but it never dries out. You can leave the cap or you can leave the lid off the can for 30 years. And when you come back, it's still going to be a gelatinous goop. It never hardens, it never dries, it stays like that. And it's also really, really sticky. So you put a little bit of it on your finger and you can put a nut or something in the end of your finger and it'll just sit there, like it won't fall off. So I've used Easy Turn, I've used the tape inside the wrench, I've used the claw. Lots of practice with dexterity, lots of practice holding things on the end of my fingers instead of in the tips of my fingers. And just getting really used and getting really comfortable to working with your hands down in there. I have found, and this is going to sound really weird, if you think about dropping it, you're going to drop it. Don't think about dropping it. Think about what you have to do to get it on the stud and get it to turn once it's on the stud, and focus on that. Focus on getting it on, like if it's a nut or a bolt. Focus on getting it on the hole or getting it in the threads and then turning it. If you're focused like, oh, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it, you'll drop it. It's just like when I'm hitting something with a hammer, I'm sitting there just wailing away on a punch and someone's like, how do you do that without hitting your finger? And you go, thank you, now I'm gonna hit my finger. Because when you didn't say it, I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about hitting my finger. All I was thinking about was hitting the punch. And as soon as you said, how do you not hit your finger? Now I'm thinking about it and it's gonna happen. So try not to think about it. Focus on trying to get the bolt, the nut, the part, the magneto, whatever it is, into its home without dropping it, and you'll be fine. As soon as you think about dropping it, it's game over. Another one that I got was, how do I decide where should I go? Should I go to general aviation or to airlines? And my answer for that is I think it's more about what you want to do with your life. There's obviously a lot more money and a lot better benefits in going to an airline or going to a major repair organization of some kind, whether that be Boeing or Standard Aero. You're going to get work air conditioned. You're going to get a lot maybe cooler experience than if you work GA. But if you're passionate about general aviation aircraft, if you like general aviation aircraft and it's what you want to do and you want to have a much well-rounded, better sort of overall experience, I think GA is better for that. I will say the systems in GA are wildly simple compared to the systems in your airline aircraft. Things are a lot more difficult. Things are a lot more intricate. there's a lot more happening as opposed to GA aircraft. Yes, they're retractable, but the retractable gear system, if it's hydraulic, has like 12 lines. The retractable gear system in a 747 has 18 bajillion lines, hydraulic lines going all through it, and sequencing valves and switches and all kinds of stuff. So it's the same thing. It's just much bigger and much more complicated. And I think it comes down to really, what do you want to do? If you want to work GA, then work GA. If you care more about making the money and you're just like, man, I don't have the experience for it, I'm not sure if I can cut the mustard, they are going to train you. I promise they are going to train you. They are not going to turn you loose on any series aircraft. They're not going to turn you loose on a Boeing, an Airbus, CRJ, it doesn't matter. They're not going to turn you loose on that aircraft without training you on that aircraft first. So if you're worried about not having the experience, I wouldn't. There's plenty of mechanics that walk on the flight line, they don't have any experience at all, and they end up doing okay. It's a sink or swim situation, but I would rather go for it and prove to myself that I can do it and challenge myself than to take the easy way out of GA trying to build experience. That's not really going to help you when you go into major airlines, because they're kind of two different things. A couple of different questions I got was, am I going to go to Oshkosh this year, or am I actually really going to go to any fly-ins this year? And the short answer to that question is no. It's not really ever something I've planned on doing. It is on the bucket list. I've been invited a couple times to go with friends to Oshkosh or to Sun and Fun or to some of the other fly-ins, and it's not that it's not a priority, it's just, I got to take vacation time from work, I got to fly up there, I got to pay all the expenses, all that kind of stuff, and come back, and we really only budget for like 1 or 2 vacations a year, so it's just never been something that I've prioritized going to. It is on the bucket list. Maybe once I've gone to some of my other vacations, like this year we went to the Bahamas, next year I'd like to go to Germany or maybe Ireland, Japan, like those kinds of things. Once I think I've done some of those bucket list vacations that I really, really want to go to and that I really have to do, then maybe the wife and I can plan a cheaper trip, or I should say a better trip to Oshkosh or something like that. Another person asked, they said they're working at an MRO in an apprenticeship, and they feel kind of lost in the hangar. And they asked, what can I do to help pick things up faster? What can I do to kind of orient myself around things a little bit better? And I've actually got two answers to that. The first thing I would do is, every single day, get to work early. I know that sounds weird. Every single day, get to work early and orient yourself. Figure out, while no one's there, before the hangar's full of people, before you're actually clocked in trying to do work, orient yourself on where everything is. Not just the bathroom and the food court, but where is the tool cage? What do they have? Where are the parts cages? Where are the toolboxes? Where is all the stuff? Where are the lines? What am I going to be working on? That kind of stuff. So orient yourself in your space and get comfortable in your space and knowing where things are when you need them, right? Also, don't ever hesitate to ask questions. We talk a big game, and as mechanics, we're a little rude, we're a little crass, but I don't know a single aircraft mechanic that if you ask them a question is not going to help you. We're not terrible, awful people. If you came to me in an MRO or anywhere else and said, hey man, I don't know where to find this, I'm not going to be like, oh, get a load of this idiot. Now don't get me wrong, I might send you on a trip to look for the aluminum magnet or 50 feet of flight line, but I'm not going to not answer your question, and I'm not going to be rude about it. We all start somewhere, we all learn somewhere, and we all know that. So you really don't have to worry about ego or pride. Don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be scared to look around at the people to uplift you, because once upon a time, they were a mechanic with no experience trying to learn how to do things. And if you ask them, there's lots of information to learn there. The other thing I would add on to that is it doesn't matter how many years you've been doing this, how long you've been a mechanic, there's always something you can learn from someone, no matter what their experience is. I've had students at my school teach me things that I didn't know, whether they were aircraft related or not. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. Sometimes somebody has information or they've learned something in a way that you haven't learned it, and maybe they can just explain it to you in a different way than you've heard it before, and suddenly everything will click. The last question that I got, and this is where I'm going to wrap up the video, is how do I stay motivated? And that's actually a lot longer question. The truth of the matter is, I think a lot of that comes down to my wife. She's in the background. She doesn't make appearances in videos, but I do love her to death. I love her dearly. I could not film YouTube videos and work a side business on general aviation aircraft and teach the crazy hours that I teach and do all the things I do without the support of my wife. She is an incredible human being. She's always been on my side and had my back when I got to go work on airplanes on the weekends. A lot of times she'll bring me lunch or she'll come visit, even though she has her own things going on. And really what it comes down to for me is responsibility. I'm doing my best, everything I can do to take care of my family, to take care of my wife, to take care of my stepkids, my dogs, so that everybody can have an outstanding life. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I started working for my dad. Like I said, he was a general contractor. I started working for my dad when I was 13 years old. Legally, I started working for him when I was 16 years old. But I started working for my dad like pretty consistently every summer when I was 13 years old, either replacing roofs, building houses, whatever it was, doing day labor for my dad. And ever since I left the house, I've woken up every single day and started to work or found something to entertain myself with every single day. When I was younger, in my early 20s, I would spend a lot of time hanging out with friends, riding motorcycles, going around, burning it down, if you will. But as I've gotten older, I wake up, I go to work, I work all day. I keep working out even after I get home. If I come home and there's tasks to do, if I need to mow the grass, if the dishes need to be done, if I need to make dinner, whatever it is, like I do those things, and I'm constantly going or entertaining myself watching a TV show. Like I have to constantly entertain myself with something because I have ADHD. And if I have a moment where I'm sitting there with nothing to do, like I start to feel really weird. Like I should be doing something. I should be productive right now. I'm just sitting here doing nothing. It feels weird to me. So I don't really relax until the very end of the day, after I've taken my shower, after I've brushed my teeth and all that, and my head hits the pillow, and I can finally relax. And that's the only moment when my wife lays her head on my chest, everything shuts off. I shut my brain off completely. My phone goes into sleep mode, and I just block out the entire world and go to bed. But the rest of the time, I'm constantly thinking about work. I'm constantly thinking about the next thing. And even when I'm not working on aircraft, when I come home on the weekend, it's like, oh, good, I don't have to work on an airplane this weekend. I'm free. I'm going to go work on my motorcycle. So I end up working on my own things. But I always tell my wife, like, this is how I relax. Working on my own stuff is how I relax. Doing my own thing is how I relax. And like I said, she's incredibly supportive. She's incredibly loving. I'm very, very proud of her. I don't deserve her. She's a far better woman than I have ever earned as an individual. And I feel like that's probably a pretty good place to end this video. So if you enjoyed it, as always, leave us a like. If you didn't get your question answered, or if you feel like there's something you want to ask, drop it in a comment below. As always, subscribe, go build something, and be easy.